So hello everyone. I'm Ellie Shore and welcome to Art Salon. I've been running these art salons for 2.5 years now. Consistency. It's been an amazing experience. I have a salon twice a month. Each one is different because every artist is so very, very different. And I look for a tremendous diversity of practicing artists here in South Florida who are innovative, exciting people in one way or another. Our speaker tonight is Yvonne Suzanne Parker, and her husband, Ron Parker, who's not going to be speaking tonight unless maybe we press him into speaking at the end a little bit. They are an amazing art couple. Yvonne was raised in a family where ceramics and porcelain were a part of life. Her father was very skilled in those fields. And then she met Ron at Art Basel, I believe. She grew up near Art Basel. English is her third language. She came to the United States with Ron, and she enrolled in and graduated from the New York Institute of Interior Design.
Don't give it all the way, Ellie.
Okay, so she's had a career as an interior designer. She's had a career as a sculptor. She and Ron have had a career consulting in art, running art galleries. They are collectors, and they have a wonderful place in Pennsylvania that she'll be telling you about. And they are here in the winter, and they've just done an amazing amount of wonderful things. So it is my pleasure to introduce Yvonne, and she'll tell you more.
Thank you so much, Ellie. Welcome, dear art aficionados, to Artful Living. The best way to describe what Artful Living means to me is to give you a tour through the projects, art, and houses that I did during the last 24 years. From a Mediterranean villa to a cottage in the woods, I transformed those places to make them artful, both the interior and the exterior. Artful living is really a mindset on what kind of environment you create, what kind of art you create, and even the way you dress. So let me show you through my eyes what artful living means to me. This is one of my sculptures, my newest mixed media work of art that I recently showed at the Palm Beach State College. Thank you, Carla, for being here tonight. The show was entitled The Nature of Impermanence. It was a two-woman show, and Karen Wagner's here tonight too. She was the other artist. I showed the sculptures. She did the paintings. And I work mainly with assemblages, collages, with vintage ceramics and hand-painted porcelain, a lot of color. But this is my newest series, large-scale sculptures made out of plaster that become more semi-abstract. Ellie, thank you so much for the opportunity tonight to host this art salon. And thank you, Cherry, for the technical support. I want to take you all on a journey around the world to discover what artful living means. And I decided to put this into 5 different parts so you can follow very easily where my beginnings are as an artist, what I did as an art dealer, and how did I become an interior designer. In part 2, we're going into my interior design projects and how I found the voice as an artist. And I'll show you collage and decoupage. Part 3, we go into deconstructing and reconstructing with a house where we live 3 blocks away from here. And I'll show you my studio in the garden and all the sculptures that are created there. On part 4, I'll take you all to Southeast Asia, where we discover mosaic together. And part 5, last but not least, we'll visit together my Art and Cultural Center in Eastern Pennsylvania. So let's take it from the top, as they say in America. The beginnings as an artist, I'll take you to Europe. Well, to Switzerland. I grew up in Rheinfelden, which is a small town in the tri-state area of Germany, Switzerland, and France. The Rhine River, town Rheinfelden, gets the name from the Rhine River, and you see this gorgeous stone bridge, which was the favorite subject matter of my dad. He was an artist, and he created these watercolor on paper. Another view across the Rhine River is this gorgeous little historic town I grew up in a very romantic area. But my favorite work of art he ever did was this little plate that I got for my 2nd birthday. I loved that plate. He painted it on porcelain. This is my dad and my mama, Susie and Kurt. My mother was this French petite lady with great style. They both dressed impeccably, and they loved art, collected art, created art, and surrounded themselves with art. And so I guess I was born to become an artist. I'm a born artist. It's just what I had to become. So soon I followed in my dad's footsteps and started porcelain painting when I was about 18 years old. This is one of my early works, and I created it in the traditional French style. And the rose seems to always appear. It's my leitmotif now, and I will get to this later. I studied art in Europe, and soon I was moving to Basel full time. Basel is only 14 miles down the Rhine River, so I was always there when I was growing up. It's such a great town, and Ellie had a wonderful art salon about this. The Beyeler Foundation, lots of galleries, wonderful museums. Here, this is the inside of the Beyeler Foundation with cutting-edge art. And what would Basel be without the Tinguely fountain with kinetic sculptures? Jean Tinguely and his wife Niki de Saint-Phal had a great influence on my own art, especially Niki with her colorful, very bold mosaic sculptures that inspired my art very much. And what would Basel be without the Basel Contemporary Art Fair? Every year I would go there, first with my dad and later alone, and look for the latest trends in art. By the way, now we have the Basel Art Fair in a couple of days in Miami, so I highly recommend you go there as well. One year in 1990 was especially exciting for me. I was looking for the perfect work of art, and I turned around the corner, and there it was. No, there he was. I met Ron at the Basel Art Fair, and he is truly a work of art for those who know him. Right, Jane? He's an art dealer. He is a piece of work. He's an art dealer, an artist, an art publisher, and together we live and breathe art 24/7. He swept me off my feet to Newport, Rhode Island, where he had a gallery. And tonight we have Renee here from those wonderful Newport days. Newport is so well known for its great architecture. And Ron had one of the cottages. They call these great mansions cottages in Newport. Beautiful architecture and great bones. So Ron owned this, and I was smitten. What can I say? Good-looking guy with a place like that? Fabulous. Most of the time we lived in New York City, the art capital of the world. And this is where he had another gallery. And I was very fortunate that he taught me the gallery business and being an art dealer from the grounds up. The gallery was located opposite of OK Harris. For those of you who know that location, it is the gallery location. I wanted to learn even more. I was by then an artist, an art dealer, gallery director in this gallery, but I wanted to learn how art is being influenced by its surrounding, by its environment. What happens when you take a painting and put it in a room? So I studied at the New York School of Interior Design. I had the great fortune to have Samuel Botero as my mentor, who's very well known in the interior design world. Artful living is the theme today, and let me show you this with these houses that I did. The Vantine, we buy houses that are run down and that need work, but have great bones or great architecture. Happens to be that Ron already owned the Vantine. We actually got married in this house. It was a Mediterranean-style villa in Pennsylvania, built in 1928, and I felt right at home. It's very European, the way it looked. The grounds were gorgeous, waterfall pond. I always think when you can be in nature, for me, that's art right there. We had a great porch, and one said, oh, maybe we should fix those cracks. I said, no way. I'm from Europe, and in Europe, we love the cracks. We like when a place shows age because it shows history. The Japanese actually have a great saying. They call it the art of wabi-sabi, the art to find beauty in imperfection and even in decay. So I embraced those cracks. This is our staircase, and we got married here. And what I did for my first interior design project, I took Ron as my client, And I decided, well, I'm just going to bring in color and bring in my personality and my style. So I picked up the color from the stained glass window, and it was a great backdrop for our sculptures, which you see here grouped together. Single sculpture, this is Chiparo's Art Deco. And here you see our living room at the Van Tine. Again, the color, I love blue, so I brought in blue, accented by the purple or fuchsia pillows. But what's more important is you see we have a very eclectic style. I like to show personality in a house. So you see a 16th century old master over the fireplace combined with an Art Deco one-of-a-kind Ruhlmann sideboard that is about from 1925 on the left. Then throw in a Biedermeier table in the back from 1835, and I'll mix it up with a contemporary custom-made sofa in the front. This shows personality, it shows artful living. People feel comfortable, we love to leave books around, and everybody feels comfortable. This is Ron's study. Again, I lifted the color from the Art Deco rug onto the walls. By the way, it was an octagonal room, just fabulous. The writing desk is one of a kind by James Mont, which we bought at Moss in New York City. And again, a very eclectic room with a Russian side table and an Art Deco rug. Now, everybody feels at home in our house, right, Jane? Right. We threw parties and nobody wants to leave, unbelievable. And the bathroom was taken over as a graffiti bathroom. Every artist that came, and therefore even if they weren't an artist, liked to leave their mark on the bathroom. Lots of fun. Here's our barn that we converted into our studio, and I would like to give you a quick peek into the window. Ron loves Barbies and likes to do installations with those. And I'll give you a quick tour into our studio. We work on art together, Ron and I. Well, I think that gave you a quick overview of who we are. So let's go to part 2, Finding My Voice in Art and Design, where I'm going to show you how I designed a little one-bedroom cottage on a shoestring budget. Then we go from there into our old nunnery. That's where we live now, actually for the last 6 or 7 years. And then I show you a portfolio about my two-dimensional work. So let's start with Kimball's Cottage. Every place that I renovate or where we live in has a name because it has a personality. And Kimball's Cottage was really a shack when we bought it. When I bought it, I should say. And I designed it on a shoestring budget by bringing in repurposed material like the chair or the table. It was a shack. I got it through a tax sale, and it was owned by a hoarder, and it was filled with things. I had 5 dumpsters needed to completely gut the place and then rebuild it new. I brought in the fence from the flea market, had a whole crew I was working with, and once when it was gutted, I brought in things like this slate tabletop. What you see here, it's important, it's the porch, and everything that is in here is either coming from flea market finds that I collected over the years or are repurposed materials. And the whole room, I think I did on $251. Cozy and comfortable is the motto bohemian, artful living on a shoestring budget. You don't need a Newport mansion or a Mediterranean villa. You can have a great place on your own, a little 1-bedroom cottage in the woods for peanuts. This is giving you an overview how the cottage looks now after I did it. On the upper right, I brought in a Victorian door and an old wrought iron fence, just to make it very charming, very European. On the upper left, you see that I ripped out the dropped ceiling and put in a cathedral ceiling. I ran out of budget, so I just painted the plywood floors. Then I brought in new windows and also French doors. I was building new decks, new landscaping, and now we come to the kitchen, which I want to show you with another picture right here. The gas stove and the kitchen cabinet came from the Point, which I'm going to show you later, so it didn't cost me a penny. And I went dumpster diving, not in my own dumpster, in another one for the green chair. Here, a view into the dining room. And when I went into the garage, I found the chairs in the garage from the previous owner, and I repurposed also the porcelain dishes that they had left behind. I love when people leave things behind because it brings in the history of the place. Now you have from drab to fab on a shoestring budget. This is little Kimball's cottage, and we love this little hideaway. I call it my little getaway cottage, and I can highly recommend rescue a house and do it on a shoestring budget. It takes a lot of elbow grease, but it's worthwhile. So from this little bedroom cottage, we go to the Point. I don't know what possessed me. No, I know what possessed me. I actually didn't want to buy this place. It was a 6,000 square foot old nunnery, and then it was turned into a children's camp. And it was so run down that I didn't even want to go inside. But we bought it because of the great view. It's called the Point because the Lackawaxen River and the Delaware River come together, and they point onto the Roebling Bridge. Great view. It's really in the country. We have deer, eagle, and all kind of animals appearing. It's very picturesque. The house was not interesting architecturally, so I had to rip down the aluminum siding, put in new windows, put in new decks, and try to settle this massive building a little bit more into the landscape, which I did with ornamental grasses and all kind of tricks. When you have a great view, you don't need a lot of flowers. I left it very low key. And artful living can be as simple as this, just a little arrangement in the perfect ceramic pot, and it just sings. Art, Leora, everywhere where we go, we create art, right? What's interesting is when you have tall ceilings, you can make installation art, and this is a big trend in art nowadays, installation art, so I wanted to try my luck here. For 2 years, I had collected vintage mirrors and made an installation of 55 mirrors in the hallway. Out of Kimball's cottage came the vintage book covers that you see on the left, and I created that for a bathroom. Now it's not a bathroom, it's a reading room. Another installation in another bathroom is all with paint by numbers. Great to go flea market shopping and get paint by numbers. And the hallways were quite boring. They were very long and very uninteresting. Salon-style hanging, I think, is doing the trick here, with a frame, just a sofa, frame, Victorian frame, and 5 chandeliers leading into the master bedroom. Suddenly, you have an interesting hallway. Ron gave me the nickname, the beautifier. Thank you, Ron, because I have this big urge to beautify everything. Even if we're in a hotel room, I have to bring in fabric or do something. So here you see our great hall, and now it really is a great room. After we totally gutted the place, I ripped out the dropped ceiling, which was only 8 feet tall, with neon lights. So I ripped it all out, and now we have a 24-foot roaring ceiling. I brought in color. I love very vibrant color from my days being influenced by Sam Botero. And finished the wooden floors, and suddenly you have a very eclectic but charming and inviting place. This is a little bit a different style. Ron had collected Art Deco furniture in Biedermeier when I was getting married to him, but this was our home that I'd completely gutted and had complete control over. So I listened to the building and it wanted to be a little bit more modern. So we used modern Danish chairs in all kind of colors here. This is the kitchen where I repurposed a lot of the metal cabinets, reconfiguring them, painting them, putting new hardware on. Again, here you see designing on a shoestring budget. New countertops, new floor, new appliances, and suddenly you have a kitchen with a lot of history, but a lot of modern charm too, on a shoestring budget. Our billiards room and our bar, we work hard and we play hard. Ron's mixed media work of art is on the left, the old auto hood. And everywhere where we go, we create art. Here I'm taking a plein air studio on our porch overlooking the Röbling Bridge. And you see some of the encaustic pigments that I'm using. Let me take you on a journey to my two-dimensional work, which is collage, decoupage, and mixed media. By the way, Jane is going to give a collage workshop at the Four Arts in January. Collage. Well, everybody says collage is so simple. All you do is you cut out, you glue, that's it. No, it's not that simple, right? What you need is a great color combination and a great composition. That's what makes a collage great. A great composition invites you to come back and to see more and more. Collage can be applied to pretty much anything. Trays, bottles, or even a bed. What I did here, I put a collage on the headboard and the footboard. And I put it onto our porch at the Vantine and created a whole installation for a photo shoot. For me, this is quintessential Artful Living. Create art anywhere where you go with anything you have. Decoupage is just a step further from collage by mixing in paint or gold leaf or other paint effects. The result looks like a painting. It has a rich history in art dating back, let's say, to 12th century in China, or going to Italy, 17th century to Florence or Venice. Even on the court in England, the ladies of the court in England were cutting up very expensive original works of art to create their paper mosaic. They called it papier mosaic. That was the time before the Xerox machine. This is one of my guardian angels, and here I did a display for an art dealer who wanted to come and select some work. One of my larger pieces, the technique is very difficult because when I do decoupage, it's behind glass, and I literally have to go and work from behind. So this is this big, and it's technically very challenging. What I also realized, there's a lot of blue. Ron has a blue shirt, I have a blue dress, my art is blue. What is this possession with blue? Obsession with blue, I should say. Well, other artists really love blue. Pablo Picasso, Yves Klein, blue, blue, blue. I'm not feeling blue. Picasso really liked a grayish blue. Yves Klein had a very bright blue. And Matisse is famous for his blue nudes. There's a fabulous Matisse show right now at MoMA, which I highly recommend you to visit if you have the chance. Blue also brings the heaven and the earth together. It's like as if it's more spiritual color. I like to use different blues and mix them together because it makes a very interesting background with a lot of texture. There's so many different blues. She looks like she's in her own universe. Blue used to be so expensive in the 14th century that the Catholic Church had a threshold on it. My art is very romantic, as you can see. Here she looks for her perfect Prince Charming. Amy Ferris writes, her pieces are joy, quirky and colorful, sexy and romantic. And I'm very honored to have the collector of this piece here tonight. Thank you so much for coming. Yes, you have quite a lot. I'm very honored. And the visionary is bringing in surrealism. And Peck had asked me at one point, well, what does it mean? Because she's the collector. And I said, art is like a Rorschach. It can mean different things to different people. But she has an enlarged eye, so she might see things that we don't know about. It's surrealistic, and that's what's the beauty about it. The dancing teacups, again, in surrealism, you throw off the perspective and you throw off the balance, as you can see here with the dancing teacups. This was exhibited at the N. Norton Sculpture Gardens with a show called Transformations. That was last year. N. Norton Sculpture Gardens and Museum. This also shows my voice, that I changed my voice as an artist from the more decorative things where I, in the beginning, just wanted to see about the composition, about the color. Now I'm becoming much more interested in what do I have to say, what do I want to express as an artist. And for me, change is very important, change and transformation. And here, my rooster is kind of a hybrid creature, and it always heralds a new day. And the 100th monkey is always showing that society is changing. Shows you the scale of my works of art. Most of them are intimate size because the technique is so difficult. And this is a more contemporary piece. This is called What and When. What and when is happening? Well, I was in Pennsylvania and I knew something is coming up and brewing, and I'm very sensitive. Most of us artists are sensitive. And I finished it 1 month before Hurricane Sandy hit. So you can see, as an artist, you get your anxiety and your angst out, and that usually makes even better art. It's wonderful when the press loves you. The Palm Beach Illustrated picked this piece up, and Online Magazine gave a great review, and it's called On View Magazine. I highly recommend you check it out. It's really fantastic. Just a quick look into my mixed media with encaustic. Encaustic is pigment with wax. Makes it very subtle, very soft, very mysterious. Here I included monoprint, so I'm mixing the different techniques. This is called Me and Thee, and I use the same image, once as a collage and once as an encaustic, and you can see how they totally change their atmosphere and their feeling. So that was a quick tour of my two-dimensional art, and now we go into part 3, deconstructing and reconstructing. Let's get the hammer out. Okay. I would like to show you this with an example of our house that's just around here in Grandview Heights, 3 blocks away from here. It's our winter residence for the last 10 years. By the way, I love the Armory and I love this little area, Grandview Heights in West Palm Beach. 10 years ago, we bought this quite run-down house. It's in the Spanish Mission style, and again, we need to name it. So I named it Casita Artistica because it shows very much bohemian chic. In the front, I just created a new garden, brought in a wrought iron fence, and also created a little mosaic step in the front. But where it was really happening was in the back. This is not shards for my 3-dimensional art. This is construction debris. We totally demolished the back. It was architecturally uninteresting. It was run down. And what happened additionally, we had a fire that broke out and burned the back down. And thank God Ron was there. I handed him the fire extinguisher, and he single-handedly turned the fire out. Here you see the back, where it's half built. We have a Florida room. No, we like to call it a Pennsylvania room. The beginning of a garden, and then the little gazebo is actually my studio. The interior, come into our living room. It's very bohemian chic, very low key. It's a small footprint, only about 1,000 square feet, and I call it the cottage near the beach. We have an old steamer trunk and a rocker that I brought in from Pennsylvania from one of the auction houses, and the rest was bought at flea markets like the Extravaganza here in West Palm Beach. A view into our dining room, again, a lot of colors. Here more a tropical approach. We used to have an old window that I opened up and created a big French door that now opens onto a side garden. In Florida, you want to bring the nature in. We do have a tendency to also collect weird dolls like this one. This came from a photo shoot just recently by a Canadian photographer who gave me those shots. And it was actually a nude Photoshop, so we have another little doll right here. About 20 years ago, I started with mosaic, and it started with functional art, a flower pot, something very simple, or the tabletops. And then the tabletops became more three-dimensional, which you see here in the middle and on the corners. And then they became more sophisticated, and then more three-dimensional. So you see how my voice started to develop as an artist. A little snapshot of an assemblage called Sweetheart. And this leads into the garden. I created the garden myself. First I was very intimidated and I thought I need a garden designer, but then I thought, well, I'm just going to approach it like I do a collage or a three-dimensional sculpture. One step at a time, one piece at a time, until the puzzle is filling the whole picture and suddenly you have a great garden. Brought in sculpture, outdoor sculpture. Here is another view into the garden. On the left, you see my sculpture called Passages, where I deconstruct and reconstruct. Deconstructing is not only for the house, and reconstructing it really also goes for my three-dimensional sculptures. I take an old Sheffield porcelain and juxtapose it with a more modern base. And then the water barrel is actually from 1880. So I like to combine a lot of different epochs and time frames. On the right, you see me working on Celebration, which is a sculpture with gold. Here I'm applying gold leaf, and gold, gold, gold is so exciting. It's rich. It has a great art history, a great history in art. It was used with Russian icons. Andy Warhol loved it. So I collected porcelain, 24-karat porcelain for 2 years until I had everything together. And you see a detail here. And the skull came in because I had a so-called health challenge, which is a sweet word for what happened. And I suddenly don't feel immortal anymore. Damien Hirst has skulls too that he brings into his art. Here is a full view of Celebration with 24-karat gold, vintage ceramic pieces, hand-painted porcelain, and it reminds me to celebrate life every day. The N. Norton Sculpture Gardens viewed it in the Palm Beach 3 last year. And what can you do with gold leaf? Well, here, just a little bit on the tip of this porcelain slip that is combined with rock from the Palm Beach shore and petrified wood. And you guessed it right. I'm totally obsessed when it comes to collecting. Hunting and gathering is in my blood, and I have a good companion right there. We go to the flea markets every week and bring and schlep back hundreds and hundreds of pieces. I'm totally crazy. It's very low key. You can see it's just a gazebo in the garden. You don't need a lot to create art. You don't need a fancy studio. Here is a work of art in progress. I'm filling in the pieces in between the tile with grout. And this is how the finished sculpture looks, Memories. The rose is my leitmotif. I love roses because it's a symbolism for love. What's better than love? Carpe diem, enjoy every day. And the frog prince. And if you kiss that frog, I can guarantee there's a prince appearing. More roses. And of course, the yellow rose of Texas for my sweetheart, Ron, because he is a Texan. I love you, Ron. La Dolce Vita with roses from Capodimonte. And Buddha is more influenced by East meets West. And I will lead you into a wonderful journey to Southeast Asia where we can discover that more. La Vie en Rose. I do have the tendency to have rose-tinted glasses on. My brother says I live in Disney World. Nothing wrong with that. And one step at a time, which I think is the ultimate piece with roses. Spirit of the Forest. I love squirrels. And would like to share a little bit more my thought process on how is an artist getting inspired. Arlene, how do we get inspired as an artist, right? I go into the studio sometimes. I never do sketches. I go in the studio and I look at all these pieces that I have and I lay them out and I see what talks with each other. They have a language and they either like each other or they don't. So the pieces that are talking with each other, I then create a whole, which you see in universal love. Color, color, color. At one point you get so saturated with color that you can't see anything anymore. So you have to cleanse your palette, and white on white I think is fabulous. And I know, Carla, that's I think your favorite series, all white on white. No, I think you changed your mind on that. So here, just pure emphasis on form. My latest series is more semi-abstract because I learned to let go. And so there's not so much emphasis on the detail anymore. They become more semi-abstract, and these are with plaster. This is a sneak peek, and don't tell Nicole Hickey from the Cultural Center that I gave you a sneak peek onto the upcoming show at the Cultural Council on December the 19th. It's called Claws and Paws, and you will see this series, which I call Blanc de Blanc. Part of my plasters were also featured at the N. Norton Sculpture Gardens and Museum. Here I combine it with flowers. It's called the Garden Goddess. And they allocated a room only for the plaster. Cynthia, the director and curator, did a gorgeous job installing this. Here's my assistant, Andrea Kilam, and I want to thank her for all the photographs, plus other photographers who gave their photographs so I could make this presentation. Well, you have all this white, then you need some black. So I integrated 13 black cats into this one. I hope you're not superstitious. And I wanted to create a work of art that's very tall. It's 6'2", it's taller than I am. But what I missed thinking about is, how do you transport this? It took 4 men to bring it in. So now I learned, and I'm putting it into parts. My new work are in parts. Marvin Mordes, who has a wonderful write-up in my catalog, is a friend, or was a friend of ours. He unfortunately passed away, but he left a great write-up and comment in my catalog if you want to have some of those. And here, a detailed look. Hundreds and hundreds of pieces. It took 2 years to create the sculpture. Okay, fashion and art go really hand in hand, and who would be better than our friend Iris Apfel? She is a style maven, and we came straight from the Mad Hatter, which is the fundraiser for the Armory. This was at the show His, Hers, and Ours a couple of years ago here at the Armory, where it all started. And you see Parker people. These are line drawings that Ron is creating. Thank you, Ron, for saying good wife, great life after 23 years of marriage. So thank you so much. And what we did here is he creates the line drawing, and I do the coloration. I call it hair and makeup. And this is all created with nail polish. Tea by the Sea, inspired by the Mad Hatter. That leads me into our journey that we all take together to Southeast Asia. Let's discover mosaics together. And I'll invite you on this cruise ship, where Ron and I took a recent trip this spring for a 9.5-week trip through 6 countries in Southeast Asia. I had the great fortune to be hired as an art curator, and Ron was the art advisor. The owner of this cruise ship is an Italian billionaire and loves art. So we were responsible for the modern masters like Picasso, Chagall, Matisse on board. Here was this great art collection. Here you see Picasso's on deck 7, a Henry Moore on deck 4, and we were even allowed to sneak in some Parker people on deck 5. In my early 20s, I was traveling in this part of the world. 1 year to the Philippines, Thailand, but at that point with a backpack. So this year, with a cruise, that was a different story. For time's sake, I only want to concentrate on Thailand, Bangkok to be precise, and Vietnam. Bangkok. 95% of the Thais are Buddhists, and there are over 400 temples, or they call it wats, in Bangkok alone. Here I went with a water taxi to Wat Arun, or the Temple of Dawn that it is called. It's a fabulous temple, not only because of its beautiful riverside view, but because it is filled with hundreds and thousands of bits of seashells and porcelain pieces. I thought I died and went to heaven. You know my passion for mosaic. I mean, that was unbelievable. Wat Arun was built in the early 19th century by King Rama. what happened is there were trading ships coming from China coming to Bangkok, and they had porcelain as ballast in their bellies, and a lot of that porcelain broke. And King Rama II took all of those shards to create this temple. I love the three-dimensionality, the way this is done. Let me give you a little video to see the scale. I always thought Gaudi was fabulous, but I had no idea how early this was happening, this mosaic work. And this was a very early way of recycling. I was so impressed. Are there any mosaic artists here, by the way? Great, so I hope you're getting inspired with this trip. Now we're going to the ancient city of Hue, which is in Vietnam, and you see a totally different style of mosaic. Very interesting work with dragons, florals, and these fantasy creatures. This was the seat of 13 emperors, and at one point it was compared to the Forbidden City in China. A closer look, you see the shards, the glass shards that have a lot of pattern in it, and they are mixed in together with ceramic and with porcelain. Hunting and gathering for material is so exciting. No flea market is safe from me. I like antique shops, even auction houses, and sometimes a friend brings something over. I heard I might get something later on too here. What kind of technique did they use in Bangkok? This is an old dragon, but when you look at the new dragons they are doing now, they're really streamlining this. He was applying tile adhesive with his hand, which I don't recommend, and then he took 48 modern glass mosaic pieces and put it in all at once. Well, it's speeding up the process, but I think it's losing its charm. This is an American artist, and she's doing it the old style, one piece at a time. That's a work of art in my garden, and I have a great assistant, the cat that you just see here peeking up. He's unpaid, my unpaid assistant. One piece after another, and this is a close-up shot, which I think explains very good the technique, and here the overall view of the garden nymph. Nowadays I have the tendency to include more hand-painted porcelains, vintage ceramics, mostly from occupied Japan, but here also epoxy resin, which is a contemporary sculpture that I integrated here. My world. And this is the tour for my three-dimensional art. So I would like to take you now from Southeast Asia. We're going to fly back to New York, and then from there we're going to go into a bus. You get a glass of wine, Art, and we'll take a 2-hour trip to northeastern Pennsylvania to my Art and Cultural Center to look at the art of collecting. Papa. Parker & Parker Art is the name of our art publishing company that Ron founded in 1979, and we abbreviated PAPA, or Papa. Ron at one point had 17 galleries in the US and one in Paris. I wish you would still have that, Ron. Papa is also the name of our Art and Cultural Center in eastern Pennsylvania. 10 years ago, we purchased a 100-year-old silk mill, 33,000 square feet, where we can house for the first time all of our art together under one roof. On the ground floor, I created a gallery about 6 years ago. Next to it, a loft for art, antiques, and artifacts. On the second floor, we house our art collection. And on the third floor, we have 2 studios, equal size, one for Ron, one for me. I have 6,000 square feet, and he has 4,000 square feet. More power to the women. We're located in northeastern Pennsylvania, 2 hours from New York City, and can show on the 3 acres we have outdoor sculptures like here by Tom Holmes, with a charming water tower where you can see New York and Pennsylvania. It's in a tri-state area where New York, Pennsylvania, and New Jersey meet. The gallery at Papa, mostly we collect contemporary art, but here's an exception, Rodin, The Age of Bronze. This is the gallery that I renovated about 6 years ago. Again, I wanted to listen to what the building has to say. Just a very low-key renovation, bringing the hardwood floors back to life. We have 17-foot ceilings. It's the perfect backdrop for our art collection. And we like to collect sculptures, paintings, drawings, mixed media works of art, and then combine it even with some furniture to really throw it off. It's very eclectic. This is a Richard Meyer mask, and on the left, Frank Gallo Rockwell Welch. Ron and I would like to share our collection. People tell us that we enrich the art and culture in our area, so I'm very glad we made the effort to renovate that building, because it is very difficult to renovate 33,000 square feet, to say the least. Ron and I are hunter and gatherers. We like to go to art fairs like the Art Basel that's coming up in Miami, or going directly into the studios of the artist to find just really great work of art. Visitors enjoy coming and talking about art. Some find the perfect piece to take home with them. And there is Jane. This French Art Deco Macassar ebony chair is part of our furniture collection, as well as the Biedermeier sofa. Ron had started that collection before we got married, and I'm very glad to mingle all of these pieces in. These to enjoy our art library. Visitors sometimes stay over 30 minutes, which is unheard of. Usually in a New York gallery, people would stay 5 minutes. But I guess there's not too much more to do in the country. This is part of our art publishing venture with artists from Japan to France to America. Ron is in the Art Publishing Hall of Fame. And I'm mentioning because we're really living and breathing art 24/7, and we're connected at the hip, in case you didn't hear that yet. These are two examples of an art publishing, actually a fundraiser for the Metropolitan Opera. On the right is Aida, and on the left is Don Giovanni, for those of you who like opera. Our youngest artist was 9-year-old Alexandra Nikita when we discovered her. We were responsible for managing her career, and we got her on the Rosie O'Donnell, Oprah Winfrey, and even on the Bill O'Reilly show, and more. All exhibitions are around our collection. I usually invite 2 or 3 guest artists during the season, but usually it is around our own collection, and we're only open during the summer because in the winter I like to be here. May I introduce you to my small team? Well, life at Papa is never boring. So here is my art curator. She's the art handler, and she's also the PR lady. Here is the gallery owner, the president of the company. She's also the chief bottle washer and the schlepper and the Sherpa. Opening of the Garden of Eden. This little sculpture was actually our wedding cake topping that we took here for the Garden of Eden. And my sculpture Eve, which I created with vintage ceramics. This is a 2-dimensional Eve decoupage, which we all know now how it's being done. And I really love when people look at art like this guy. He really looks. There are many different reasons why you can collect art. I like the 3 Ps. Collecting for pleasure, for profit, or prestige, or for all of the above. A recent show from Russia with Love, we have 17-foot ceilings, so I like to group things together. In the beginning, it was a big challenge as a curator. How do I show art that it doesn't look dwarfed? Because everything looks so small. So grouping things together really makes it look more important. Lucien Dulfan is from Odessa. So here we showed 7 different artists from the Soviet Union. A grouping of his work. Sergei Pachomov is from St. Petersburg, and what's interesting, I come back to Ron. He was traveling in the 80s throughout the former Soviet Union and went directly into the artist's studio. He would be sitting there and they would come and bring one painting after another, and he could make his selection. He bought about 30 works of art from Pachomov alone. We love to go in depth with an artist because then we can really figure out what the voice is of an artist. What does the artist want to express? If you take it from early to later. Viktor Kochin from Moscow. And here's Anthony Christian, originally from Great Britain, who lives now in exotic places. And you see he paints like an old master, but with an exotic touch. I mentioned the 3 Ps, collecting for profit, prestige, and pleasure, but I think there are more reasons. If a work of art really hits you right in the gut, you have to have it, right? And what you also do is you really support the artists with it. In the case of Anthony Christian, we gave him a monthly stipend for 2 years. It took the pressure off him to figure out where the money came from, and he could just really concentrate on the art. Another way of supporting the artists, we give them shows, group shows or solo shows. Here in the case of Anthony Christian, because we have a large collection of about 50 pieces, we gave him a solo show this summer. You see Anthony right here is a self-portrait of the crazy artist. He loves to run around in period costumes because he says, well, this is how you really get into the spirit of an old master. And another artist we gave a stipend is Charles Lasseter for actually a couple of years. We have a large collection of his work. We are responsible for his whole estate since he passed away. And we love Charles' work. Look at the composition, look at the lines, the expressions on the people. For me, he's truly a modern master. Philippe Carrel from Paris, he loved to travel to exotic places and come up with a series of Indonesian characters, all works on paper. This is also a watercolor on paper, but it looks like a painting, just a fabulous technique and so much feeling and atmosphere in this painting. Doesn't this rooster just bring a smile on your face? This is by West Palm Beach artist Lisa Kramer, and we love to collect unusual ceramics, quirky, unique, different, that just bring a smile on your face. One of Ron's line drawing is here in ceramic, Parker people. You might find yourself in a Parker people drawing next. The 3 porcelain vessels in the back are by my friend Angela Klerner. She's very well known in the Philadelphia area, and her husband was the lead director in the Philadelphia Clay Studio. True Love, Lura Bleu, and the Squirrely Squirrel are my pieces that you see on the right, just kind of grouping it into an exhibition right here. Don't be afraid to display your own art. I met an artist who said, well, I'll never display anything that I do, and I thought, that is strange. If you don't like your art, who does? The loft is for art, antiques, and artifacts. These are 3,000 square feet that we renovated about 5 years ago. And we had to sandblast the brick walls, open up the windows, bring in new doors. Ron and I, we always wanted to have a loft, and we never had a loft. And so suddenly we were able to have that. And what we do here is, again, we open it to the public because nothing is better than to share art with other people. Here we have less expensive art, antiques and artifacts all mixed together. And for me, this is quintessential artful living. I mix the high and the low, antiques with contemporary, things from the flea market with expensive urns from Palm Beach, actually. This is just my way of seeing things, but there are many ways you can look at artful living. Here I'm combining Indian card with hand-carved Moroccan doors. And let's go to the box that pop up. And the box was totally black. There was not a window, not a door, nothing. It was actually charred because it had a fire there. So it was just really a black box. And slowly but surely, one of the other reasons why we're selling our collection is any money we make from the sale, we just put back into the building. And when you have 33,000 square feet, it really is a money pit. So here we renovated the box. Now we open it as an open studio for the Wayne County Artist Tour. And so you see more of my mixed media works. And this is a new series where I'm working on bird cages. Are we trapped or are we protected? It's a very interesting idea of what is happening in the cage or outside of the cage. One of my early mosaic tables where you see a detail right here, love frogs. I guess that's from my French background. And let me take you up to the 3rd floor to discover another universe. On the staircase, we have one of Ron's flags with automobile hood. He loves crucifixes. And this is the penthouse studio at Papa. Now, usually I don't take anybody up there, so I hope you enjoy this little inside view. Ron must have about how many crucifixes do you have by now? About 200, 250? At one point, we're going to make an exhibition with that as well. But hundreds, if not thousands of objects are clustered together here, waiting to be created into an installation or to be a work of art, part of a work of art, or to be a prop in the next interior design that I'm doing. This is 10,000 square feet filled. Yes, we're completely out of our mind. This is the beginning of an installation called Road Warrior, which brings me to the end of my presentation. The last part is our boiler room. This is where our presentation ends. I was lucky to have it as a backdrop for my shoot. And I want to thank you so much for taking the journey with me. Thank you so much.